Yeah. All right, we're recording.
Hey!
I like. Maybe we should start right off by trying to figure out. Does anybody know what letter day it is today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone?
Anyway, leave in the comments, please, if you guys know what letter day today would be.
Mr. Baier and I are well, not coming to you live, but we wanted to reach out to you guys because well, we miss you, and it's been too long, and we've really missed talking about books and just asking how your day is going and what's new and all that stuff. So we thought we would, create a little video talking about The Fault in Our Stars and a little bit about what's going on with us, and reach out to you guys. We'll try to, I feel like this is going to be like 5 hours long.
Oh, it's so true. I feel like for those of you who are, blessed enough to have Mrs. Gillett and I in class, you're like, oh God, why am I going to watch this? No, hopefully it'll be, the idea was to have a kind of just an informal discussion, and hopefully you guys will enjoy just some of the shenanigans as we talk about Fault in Our Stars here. Mrs. Gillett was just talking about her, they were having some dryer issues, some car issues over there, and everyone's just trying to manage,
We our dryer broke, so towels that are not dried in the dryer that you air dry, it's like cardboard. It's really not fun. Yeah,
it's like
our
sandpaper.
Battery went on the car. It was it's.
Which car was it? Was it the Outback or the?
Yeah, our Subaru.
Oh, really?
Took that in. I think Mr. Gillett just sort of like threw some cash across the counter. Not literally, but I guess when he walked in, the guy had a mask on, and it was.
Did he wear his mask?
He did not.
Oh, yeah. Bummer.
I know.
He would have fit right in.
He would.
So we figured before we started talking Fault in Our Stars, we'd kick off the day with morning announcements. And we've been hearing from Amanda in our second period class ever since school ended. She's been sending in a bird of the day, but we haven't heard from her yet today. So we created our own, we came up with our own. Mrs. Gillett found today the lark sparrow as the bird of the day. And as always, what's the one that's every day?
The Stellar's Jay.
The Stellar's Jay. That's right. So, and then the lunch of the day is probably going to be something that you have frozen in your refrigerator. But Mrs. Gillett and I we're talking about maybe liver and some nice sautéed onions or something really nice that would surpass school expectations. The quality of school lunches, but.
My daughter found out that today is actually National No Homework Day. I feel like the last 2 weeks have been kind of like National No Homework Day, but I also want to give a shout out. I probably will share this with first and fourth period. Mrs. Whalen was unable to join us today. She had to, rearrange her sock drawer or something. I don't know. I'm just kidding. Sorry, Mrs. Whalen. She had some important stuff she had to do. So, she's got 2 kiddos at home and trying to get them situated.
Believe it or not, yeah, she had another meeting when we were supposed to be meeting today. Believe it or not, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But for by the way, for first period and fourth period, I'm Mr. Baier. I think I've stopped into class a couple times, but just want to introduce myself.
Also, Mrs. Whalen probably would have become very frustrated with Mr. Baier and I at some point. But if we do this again next week, maybe she'll join in, and she's always, checking the time.
We're planning on talking about chapters 1 through 5 today, and I'm guessing we probably might want to cut it down to like only 2 or 3.
I'll keep it. Okay, it's 10:51 right now.
Okay, sounds good. What do you think about this Fault in Our Stars book?
I really like this book. One of the things I like about this book is that it's real, it's modern, appropriate for you guys. It's such a sad book in some ways, but it's mixed. For me as a mom now reading it, it brings on a whole other level of sadness. But I just love the characters. I know I sound like an English teacher now, but I really do like Gus and Hazel. They're And Isaac's, I think Isaac's my favorite, honestly. I just like that guy.
Yeah,
it's just, I think there's a lot you can take from this story and apply to your own life, and it's very relatable.
Yeah, I also, I like to preface this book based on what kids have said in the past. And, this book is obviously about characters or at least a character who is dealing with cancer. And I feel like so many people, almost everybody knows someone who has dealt with cancer, and immediately, there are strong emotions tied to that. I remember having a student years ago who was like, really having a tough time reading this book. And I think I want to preface it by saying that John Green, I think, does a really good job of trying to not make it just a book about cancer. It's about so much more. And I think he really tries to do a good job of making a hopeful book about cancer. And there's even a line at one point at the beginning of one of the chapters, I'd have to find it, but where Hazel, the main character, is talking about her favorite book, An Imperial Affliction, where where that book talks about the main character has cancer, and it's actually the beginning of chapter 4. So some of you might not be there yet, but she says about An Imperial Affliction, but it's not a cancer book because cancer books suck. And I really like that John Green included that line about a book within his book about cancer,
Right.
because I think he's trying to make the point, like, this isn't just a cancer book,
Yes.
I also like, I mean, and maybe we can start at the beginning where, in the first chapter, Hazel, she really like meets Augustus, this kid. And like, I always like, I think that their experience of kind of running into each other is a little bit different because she's at support group for cancer. But, in the end, I think his, like the way that they meet is very real. And I think like this young love that I think becomes immediately apparent is powerful in a lot of ways.
Comes through on the page. You can
Yeah.
feel it. The awkwardness. Let me check my clothes. What am I wearing? Oh my God, my hair.
Totally.
It's
Well, especially someone who's like kind of disfigured from cancer treatment, right? Like and I think so many times we as humans are so worried about our appearance, but like she's really going through something to cause her appearance to totally change.
Yeah. You don't really, for those of you that have, I'm sure many of you have watched the movie, it's a great movie, and they do a really nice job following it. In fact, when it first came out, that was the first year we taught the book, and so we took a lot of kids to the movie theater. We did like a meet at the movie theater, and I remember there wasn't a dry. I think I was sitting next to Mr. Northrup, maybe, and I think he was just sobbing uncontrollably, and I was sobbing. It was, but in the movie, you don't get a sense so much. It's a Hollywood movie that the characters don't really look sick. So that's one of the things in the book I think that is more realistic.
Yeah, for sure. And I like, one of my favorite parts is actually on page 12 to 13, because I think it develops Hazel really well. And it's towards when they're in support group and she first meets Gus, and she delivers these lines where she basically talks about that everything is going to end in oblivion, where like there's time before humans existed, there will be a time after, and that kind of everything we do in between doesn't really hold much purpose in the long run. And I think that like is a really interesting, which I think is developed. We find out like her idea is developed from reading An Imperial Affliction from Peter Van Houten, right? The fictional book, and the fictional author in the book. But I think it sets up for later we see a little bit from Gus to suggest that he doesn't feel that way. That like what we're doing here, living, our lives are much more important than what Hazel's saying.
Very appropriate for even what we're going through right now.
Totally.
It is a grim reality, but I think that when I wrote in my book, like it's just grim to think like we have no purpose. I totally disagree with her, and I think that's just where she's at this point in her life. And like you said, the influence of that book, Imperial Affliction. But gosh, I don't know if I could go through living that way, thinking that what we are doing has no
I know.
The value of importance.
Well, and also I think being a young person dealing with cancer, right? I mean, it's like she hasn't had much life to live, and she's kind of facing this inevitable death, right? Like she's taking this drug that's at least stopping the tumor growth, but the tumors are still there, and she will eventually die from it, and she knows that. And I think it's kind of hard for someone in that situation to see, like, what was the point if I didn't really get a chance to really live out my life to the fullest extent, you know? But
totally different perspective.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and one that, you know, quite honestly, I think, you know, it's hard for us to relate to, you know?
Yes.
But,
she, you know, right in the beginning too, she starts off, it's just one of these things I noticed throughout the whole book. You guys will, as you're reading, you'll see, she keeps saying how like depression is a side effect of dying. And then she goes on and she keeps saying that over and over again, that there are different side effects of cancer that she points out. And that's kind of interesting to have that perspective. You know, her parents are like, oh, you're depressed and we should do something. And yet she's like, this is what it is.
Yeah, because she's like, because I'm dying. Like, that's, yeah, totally. What do you think about Gus's cigarette metaphor at the end? Because I will tell you, when I first read this book, so this was, I think this book, you know, was first introduced to me. There was a student who I had as an 8th grader back when I was teaching in Livonia. This was back in 2013 or so. And she was a big reader and loved John Green. And so she read this book. She was like, Mr. Baier, you have to read it. And I remember reading the first chapter, and I got to the end of the chapter, and I thought Gus's whole cigarette thing was so corny. I like had to put the book down for a while because it was just, but I think for young people, like they think it's really cool. It's a really cool scene.
I wish I could poll the class as a group, because I would love to know what you guys think of that. Is it too corny? I feel like sometimes in the past, some of you guys think Gus is a little too corny, too, what's the word?
Yeah, like kind of. So I guess my question has always been like, is he smooth and suave, or is he just too much? Like and I remember in the past, like I remember a thing that like 4 or 5 years ago. I don't know if this is still part of the vernacular, but kids used to be like, "Dude's got wheels, man. Dude's got wheels." Hey, what's up? What's up, surf school?
Here, hold on. There we go.
Hello.
There we go. Everybody, Mr. Gillett, Mrs.
Coming to you live from WGAR studios out on Drive in Canada, boy.
Yeah. That's right, and we're back.
Nice coffee mug. Everyone's feeling it. Okay, get back to the book.
We'll edit him out.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, God. So anyway, like the whole cigarette metaphor, I think, you know, obviously he claims like this idea that you put the killing thing in your mouth, but you don't let it have the power to kill.
Right.
I don't know that it's a metaphor, though. Like he calls it a metaphor, but I don't know that that's what it is.
Yes, as an English teacher, you're like, huh.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what he's comparing it to, right? Like, I mean, I look at it more as a symbol. And I don't know if John Green did that purposely just to kind of show that like he is just a kid. Yeah. And but also like he is thinking deeply about things. He just doesn't quite know how to label those things that he's thinking about. I don't know.
I agree. I think, yes. I kind of like that.
But yeah, kids used to be like, dude, he's got wheels, man. He's so smooth. He knows what's up. And I'd be like, I don't know that he does. Like the very first, he meets her and immediately is like, come over and watch a movie with me. And she's like, okay, I will.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, like if that was my daughter, I'd be like, no, way too quick. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like it's a little weird. I think he's a little forceful. That would have creeped me out a little bit.
Yeah.
He's got a little bit of Gatsby in him, you know?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Totally. So what else were you struck by?
You know, one of the things, this is like in chapter 2, I'm kind of moving ahead, but I really like how even though, I think Gus is a little forceful, a little creepy in some ways, I think that he is, I think he is desperate for interaction and meaningful interaction. And he seems like a good guy, when she goes to his house, I really like how he treats her. And he's like, tell me your story. And she's like, I already told you. He's like, not your cancer story. And I think that's so important because I think it's hard for us, the whole time, even like when she goes and has lunch with her friend in the mall, her other friends don't, it's hard for them to understand what she's going through, understandably. But he does because he has had cancer. So he can empathize with her instead of just sympathizing with her. And yet he's like, I want to know who you are. I want to give you the opportunity. Let's not talk about this. Let's live as normal life as we can. And I don't know. I just sort of like that juxtaposition of like her old friends and now these new friends. And it doesn't mean that she doesn't like her old friends. It's just it's the reality of how difficult it can be.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's where John Green, when he says this isn't a cancer book, I think that's what he means. Like, Gus and Hazel, and Gus, I think, is trying to teach Hazel how to live normally, but they're just living with something that most people don't, right? Or that a lot of people don't. And so like the cancer is obviously a part of their lives, but there's so much more to them and who they are. I wish Mrs. Whalen was here though for this section because this is Gus wants to watch V for Vendetta in the basement. And his parents are like, yeah, no. And he's like, but I want to show her the basement. They're like, you can. And then you're coming back upstairs and you're watching upstairs. And Mrs. Whalen for many years would kind of make the joke that like her husband had wanted to finish the basement. And she was like, no, because I know what goes on in the basement.
How many of you guys, I wonder, have basements and that are, redone and you guys hang out in them? I don't know, with your friends?
Finished basements? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully just Netflix. No chilling. Yeah. No chilling.
Well, it's interesting. In the movie, though, they do go hang out down there. They
because that's his bedroom.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. That's true. And didn't we buy a house with a finished basement? So if we ever have kids, it's gonna be the battle.
Right. Ours is like semi-finished. It's got carpeting but it's not too it's cold down there or hot. It's not very comfortable.
Yeah.
We thought about making it more comfortable, and then we're like,
no.